Hi, Dr. Lindsey. Wendy is on vacation, so I'm taking this morning to go through an analogy of using trees and hair sizes to educate you, the potential consumer, as to how to evaluate hair transplant options. So I've planted roughly 3,000 real trees out in the world. I enjoy planting trees, and so I grew up farming. So when you think about a hairline, you don't want a Christmas tree farm. You want an irregular hairline, like an irregular border of a forest. Some forests are composed of skinnier trees, and you can look through them more than if they're composed of big bushy trees. So let's look at a few examples of fine, medium thickness, and thick hair. And let me show you some tree examples and how similar trees would be used to screen. And so the fatter the hair, the better the coverage that you're going to get, and also the more resilient the hair root is going to be for transplantation. So let's start with this. Virginia is covered with these little trees called arbor vitae trees. It's a skinny tree. They're useful for doing general landscaping, but they're not much on screening your neighbor's house because they're so small. Particularly if you do it like this and you plant them far apart, you can look right through that. That would be like if you did a fine hair transplant and you put a hair every couple of millimeters. It's not enough. If you pack them close enough together, though, you can use them for a screen like this. Now here's a fellow that sent me in this picture from California. He's a fine-haired guy, just like these thin trees. And we packed enough hair in him that when he sent this selfie in at 16 months, he's got pretty good coverage. But it's not as good a coverage if he had really fat hairs. He's doing some styling, which is critical for hair transplant. Hair transplant does not cure baldness, but it gives you hair that you can style and give the illusion that you don't have hair loss. So this is a fine-haired fellow at 16 months. Now let's go with a little thicker hair. This guy has medium thickness hair, kind of like these medium thickness Leyland cypress trees that are here all over McLean. And they're useful for screening houses. I've probably planted 40 or 50 of those things in the different houses that I've lived in over the past 22 years. And so they have big fat root balls like this. They cover reasonably well, and if you string enough of them together, you can block the house next door to you, or you can block the scalp behind the hair transplanted hairs. So here's this fellow at 9 months with really good coverage, and it's only going to get better, but that's when I got to see him. And because he's got medium thickness trees, or medium thickness hairs, it really looks quite good already. Next are even a little thicker trees. And take a look at this Leyland cypress with a big fat root ball. Those things are resilient to Virginia drought, to Virginia clay, and its hair transplant corollary, this relatively thick-haired guy who sent in a selfie at 15 or 16 months, looks fantastic. It's just a wall or a veritable forest of trees that camouflage his hair loss. Next, we have probably the best type of hair to transplant, big bushy hairs. And so what's the tree corollary? Well, maybe the blue spruce, which you can see here. And here's one in front of a house. Just took one tree to cover half that house. And you put a couple of them together and it looks like a forest. And that is thick, curly, Middle Eastern hair like on this fellow. So here he is before, and here he is only at 7 months, but it's probably only half growing, and he moved out of the area. It looks fantastic already. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that when you go and see a sales consultant or a doctor about your hair transplant, don't just get shown pictures of the ideal patient with perfect hair like this guy, because you might not have that. Ask to see pictures, or hopefully the person will be showing you pictures of patients with hair in similar characteristics to yours. Lastly, on my way into work today, I was thinking about doing this video, and I saw two houses across from each other. Here's one with skinny trees, and here's one with bushy trees. And you can just see the fatter the hair, the better the shield is, or the screening is for the house, and similarly, the better the hair transplant result will be in giving coverage of scalp. Last, let's talk a little bit about FUE versus strip. So when we cut out a strip, there's virtually no trauma to the root balls. The strip's taken out, Each one of our trained cutters uses a microscope to dissect each hair or group of hairs with, I won't say no trauma to the roots, but very little trauma to the roots, and they're quickly inserted back into the scalp. With FUE, we use a hand punch and essentially dig a little hole around the follicular unit, and then we have to grab the follicular unit and pull it out, and in doing so you avulse a little bit of the root ball. And so obviously skinny hairs don't work as good as fat hairs. So here's an analogy, here's a diagram of how you transplant a tree. You dig a little circle around it, and then you take a shovel and stick underneath and lift that root ball out. There's no shovel in FUE, and there's no room to put a shovel in, so we end up pulling the hair out. And if it's a skinny, tiny hair, and if it's removed by an inattentive technician or a vacuum apparatus, I think what likely happens is you end up with this, which is a root ball with virtually nothing, no dirt, no protective tissue around the root. And that just isn't going to live well as a tree. And the same thing with fine-haired FUEs. So we almost never do a fine-haired FUE just simply because they don't tend to work as well. Now you have a medium or bigger thickness hair, you pull it out and you get a nice bunch of tissue around the root, similar to these big root balls on the bigger trees. And note the root ball on this arbor vitae tree is okay, but the one on this Leyland cypress is huge. And the same thing goes with people's hair. A fine-haired person is going to have a skinny root ball. A medium thickness is going to have a medium root ball, and a big fat hair is typically a big fat hair root that's difficult to kill. And if you take it out with care, keep it cool, and get it back into the recipient site within 6 hours, the results, particularly in thicker hairs, maybe not quite equal to strip, but they're close. The thinner the hair, the farther the results are from strip hair transplants. So I hope this helps you, the potential consumer, to make educated decisions and not just to be sold a case based on marketing. Think it through. You should look at plenty of videos and pictures. And if you're at a place where they don't have any pictures, you got to ask yourself why. I mean, we take pictures of everybody every time they walk in. There should be no shortage of pictures of patients that the doctor you're going to has done. If I can be of further assistance, please give us a call. Thank you.